This is the land acknowledgement. The city of Vancouver acknowledges that it is situated on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. This place is the unceded and ancestral territory of the, I can't pronounce that word, speaking peoples, of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, and has been stewarded by them since time immemorial. Vancouver is located on territory that was never ceded or given up to the crown by the Musqueam, Squamish, or Tsleil-Waututh peoples. The term unceded acknowledges the dispossession of the land and the inherent rights that the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh hold to the territory. The term serves as a reminder that Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh have never left their territories and will always retain their jurisdiction and relationships with the territories.
Thank you. Cool. All right, I'm just going to put this. All right, go ahead.
Well, thank you everybody for coming out and sharing your Sunday afternoon with us. Got a great talk with Jeremy planned, someone from our very own group. And then we have an optional potluck to follow. So feel free to stick around. We're going to do the talk, then we're going to do some small groups, and then we're going to do the barbecue. So feel free to stay as long as you would like. And I think that's pretty much it. You got some housekeeping stuff?
Yeah, I do. First of all, I want to just say thanks to Chris. You know, as maybe you may remember Christoph, you know, he's still with us, but he's moved to Vancouver. We are in Vancouver. He's moved to Victoria, so he's not going to be around as much as usual. And so we have a leadership group of a few members who've been around for a long time that have been, kind of stepping up to help out. And, you know, amongst those are going to be kind of taking over from Christoph. So just really want to thank Chris as the first one who's really, other than Christoph and I, to really step up and start helping out. So in terms of actually organizing one of these completely. So thanks so much, man. Yeah, absolutely. Basically, if anyone's interested in kind of helping out as much as possible, just let me know. Especially if you're in the Discord, you can just give me a message or write to me on Meetup or whatever, and we can talk about that. We're definitely all volunteer-led, so no one's making any money off of this stuff. So one quick thing, I realized I made a little bit of a mistake when communicating out. I wasn't thinking because we have a barbecue here, yet I should have messaged out to others to encourage people to bring barbecue-ish stuff. So we don't have a lot of burgers. So if anyone has a vehicle and can, at some point, maybe during the small groups, maybe pop off to a shop and grab a case or a couple packages, that'd be great. We don't have a million people here, but I will pay you back for anyone if he's interested in that. We don't have to decide right now. So anyway, let me know. He's got some, and Chris has some veggie burgers. So
burgers and buns.
Sweet. So yeah, if anyone wanted to jump in, grab a little bit more, that'd be awesome. If not, that's okay too. If there's something close by, that'd be awesome. But if not, I might do it myself, but I don't have a car. So that's that. We are going to record, so just keep that in mind if you're asking questions and care about your privacy. The camera's only going to be pointed at Jeremy though, so you won't be seen, but yeah. And I'll remind you to repeat questions when people ask questions, because only your voice in your headphone will get captured. So thanks for that. As mentioned, there is some costs around these renting the space here, paying for some of the meetup, just keeping the meetup going and stuff like that. And sometimes, we buy food for folks and whatever. So if anyone is able to kick in any donations, you can give those to me. That'd be really awesome, or Chris. Anything you can give. We don't expect anything. We want this to be a place where folks can come and not expect, anyone to have to pay. But if you can, that'd be great. We'd very much appreciate it. I do want to mention we are looking to do name tags. You can see, I think most of you got them. It's hard to remember when you're meeting new people, especially, me, I meet 1,000 people, always coming and going, and it's hard to remember. So if you want to do name tag, that'd be awesome. Also, I want to mention our group chat. We may hear people talk about Discord. It's an online group chat where a lot of us can kind of keep in touch, stay in touch afterwards. In between, there's a lot of great information there. People can ask questions. We do unofficial group, gatherings. Just yesterday, Paul and organized a hike that a bunch of folks went to. Every Wednesday, we've been going to this event in often we're going to this event in Trout Lake called the Flow Jam. It's like a little hippie festival kind of happening every Wednesday night, and we kind of talk about it there and decide who's going to go or not or whatever there. So if you're interested in that, you can send a message to me, or just, and I can get you invited to that group. And we do have also an anonymous feedback form. So for anyone who, wants to just give any feedback, we have in the Discord app, there's a link to a Google form. You can put that in there and say, give us any feedback, ideas. It's completely anonymous. Obviously, if you want, you can just talk to me or anyone about it. That'd be cool too. So the last thing that I'll say is our next event. We've already got that planned. It's going to be July the 17th, basically same time, same channel, just a few weeks from now here in this location. And I'm really stoked about this one. We're going to be sending out the meetup, the official meetup, probably this week about that, so you can get signed up. Really stoked about this one. It's a very, very unique talk. It's actually a ordained minister named Ron, who's come to a couple of our events. He was invited to a psychedelics in Christianity conference in Netherlands. And he's going to kind of come and report back about that. So it's always been a very interesting thing to me, like religion, psychedelics. Generally, the two aren't meeting, though there's been some experiments. You may have heard the Good Friday experiment, which was done back in the 50s or 60s, with giving some religious folks LSD and stuff. So Ron is just a pretty interesting guy, and I just want to have him share about that event and just his own thoughts around religion and psychedelics. I think it's going to be really fascinating and very different from what we normally talk about. So get signed up for that, and hope to hear you there. Hope to see you there. So really, the only other thing to mention is we're going to hold, for Jeremy's asked for questions at the end of the talk. I'm so stoked that we have our own members giving presentations here and doing our talks. I think, it's really cool when we can get big, well-known people, which is really great. But I love it seeing our own folks doing it. And so obviously we've done this in the past. Paul's done talks. I have, a few others have. If anyone ever has ideas for stuff that you want to talk about, we're open to that always. If there's anything you want to share about or have ideas, we also talk about it a lot in the Discord. But yeah, really excited. Jeremy has been kind of a friend of ours and a part of the group for two years at least. He's starting, he's got a lot of amazing stories. He's going to talk about his story, kind of recovering from some bad trips, giving some advice and everything. He's also starting a new career as a life coach and doing some coaching, big IFS enthusiast. And, he envisions a world transformed by love. And he's what a wonderful guy. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for giving the talk here. So I'll introduce Jeremy.
Wow, this is amazing. This is just, 3 months ago, I think I contacted Kenny with this idea of me coming up here in front of, some people. I didn't know how many people would show up for this event. I didn't know a lot of things. There was a lot of uncertainty that was going on in my life. And before we dive into that, actually, I want us to take a moment if you all could join me in meditation online and in person here, if you just join me a quick meditation, just so we can bring ourselves to this meeting. I always love to start when I'm coaching. I love to just give ourselves that space within ourselves to just quiet down. And so if you wouldn't mind, just closing your eyes just for a second. If you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, that's totally okay. But I like to close my eyes and really just go inside and really feel your feet on the ground. Just feel what's arising in your body, what's there. Really feel starting from your feet, working up through your legs. Feel it go through your hips, through your stomach. Just feel those sensations, if there's anything there showing up. Going through your chest, up through your arms, down to your fingertips, and back up. Going through your neck, going through to your jaw, your cheeks, going through to your ears, the top of your head, just anywhere that you might feel a bit of tension. Forgot to mention the shoulders. A lot of us carry a lot of tension in our shoulders. So we can just let go of that tension. Any feelings that might be showing up for you right now? Maybe you're just a bit curious. Maybe there's a bit of anxiety around being around people like this in this kind of space. Just to really acknowledge that. That's welcome here. Everything's welcome. And also just any thoughts that you might have, any thoughts about what this talk is going to be like today. Anything else that might be on your mind? Maybe you got things going on in your life outside of this space right now that might be distracting you. I just invite you just to see if you just allow that to be. Allow that to be and just acknowledge it. And just by that simple acknowledging it, we bring that awareness to it. And sometimes I just having that awareness will help quiet down our minds. And just acknowledging, coming out of our brief meditation here, just acknowledging the sounds that we're hearing, just being in this space together, this beautiful space. We can all just begin to slowly open our eyes and bring ourselves back. I hope that was enjoyable for people, even if you're not used to doing something like that. I strongly encourage that kind of practice in your daily life, just to be able just to bring some quiet moments to your life. It's so important to have that quiet sense of inner peace. Just as we hear things like airplanes and all that going all around us, and that's okay. My talk today is about integration. We're talking about integration and how we can apply that to everyday life and what that means, and really defining what integration is all about. For me, I had this idea going into my experience with psychedelics that it was going to be a certain way. For me, it was having two sessions before the experience, have the experience, and then have 2 sessions after. Now, I don't know if everyone has that kind of idea of integration, but for me, that's what it was all about. And then I had the experience, and it didn't turn out that way at all. In fact, I had to spend the next 20 months integrating my psychedelic experience. 20 months of waves going up and down. At first, there was a lot of down. I had to deal with the experience in and of itself, which was very destabilizing. It was destabilizing in the way that it caused me an existential crisis. It caused me to question reality. And those things are okay. It's okay to question reality. But when you don't have the answers that you're looking for, it can leave you in a space where you're uncertain about everything. You have no idea which way is up, basically. You have no idea what is right, what is wrong. And for me, I had to really focus in on what I had to really simplify my life. I had to just go to I basically just anything that I could do just to make my mind a bit calmer, which was just starting a routine. For me, just going back to the basics of just exercise, getting a bit more sleep, and therapy, and a whole bunch of host of other things. And it's just that was the initial stabilization of that experience. And when I look back on that experience, it really draws parallels to another experience I had, and that experience is something that I would like to share with you tonight. And that experience was actually from about 5 years ago. 5 years ago, back in August of 2017, I had an experience where I had to face my demons. And what that looked like was forgiving the man who raped me. What that experience was like and how I was able to work myself up to that experience, to forgive that man on that day. It wasn't an easy experience. It was one that was many years in the making of actually working on myself to muster up the courage to stand in front of him and tell him what I wanted to tell him. And on that day, I remember it was a sunny day like today. I walked out and went and drove to Vancouver, and with my wife with me, tried to get a hold of him. And he lives in a very in like near Maine and Hastings, which for some of you that are watching online, Maine and Hastings is not the most I can't even think of the word right now. It's where people have a lot of hardships, and there are a lot of addiction there, a lot of hurt people. That's the best way I can explain it. A lot of hurt people there, and a lot of hurting people there. And so this gentleman, he lives near there, and I tried to get in contact with him. And I finally got into his building, and he wanted nothing to do with me. He didn't want, we had a brief contact, and he was like, no, I don't want to talk to you. I've said what I needed to say to you, and we're done. And that wasn't good enough for me. I didn't want to accept that, because for me, I wanted to make peace with him. And so later on that day, I ended up going out for dinner with my wife, and then coming back, and he was gone. I used the phone number that I had, and I tried to get a hold of him again, and his girlfriend ended up picking up the phone and said, look, he doesn't want to talk to you. We're at bingo right now, and it's just, sayonara. And I was like, but I want to, talk to you. And so I looked at, me being the guy that I am, I'm pretty techie. I ended up going online and seeing that there's 2 bingo halls close to us. I'm like, okay, which one am I going to choose? And so I took a guess, and it wasn't until the bingo hall. So I went to the one, and it wasn't until the bingo hall was done for the night and people started filing out that I had my answer. And that answer was I went to the right one, because as he was filing out and going to the washroom, he saw me. And when he came out, he looked at me again, and then he went back to his seat. And that's when I proceeded to follow him to his seat. Sorry for some of you that are online. I'm just waiting for some overhead noise to subside a little bit. So I followed him to his seat, and his name's Eugene. I said, Eugene, do you know who I am? And he said, yeah, I do. And I said, I just want to talk to you. I just want a couple of minutes of your time. And that's when his girlfriend interjected, said, no. He doesn't want to talk to you. He can't talk to you. He's not going to talk to you. And they start to walk away. And I ended up following them out of the bingo hall. And I just said, Eugene, I said, I just want 2 minutes of your time. Just 2 minutes. Give me 2 minutes. And he agreed. He said he would give me 2 minutes. So at around 10 o'clock at night, August 13th, in front of this bingo hall in Vancouver, I got to do something that I never thought I would do. And that is forgive the man that raped me. And I forgave him. I was able to forgive him because I got to a space in my life, I got to a place in my life where I worked on myself. And I was able to stand in front of this man who did something horrendous when I was 11 years old to me, and hold space for this experience. I didn't know what holding space was at that time, but now I do. And so I was able to say to Eugene, I said, Eugene, I forgive you. And I know what you've been through, because I've been through that too. And just a brief aside, he was part of the residential schools where many Aboriginals got abused. And by no means am I excusing his behavior, but it does give you some context as to what would cause this man to do this kind of thing to me or to anyone else. And then I asked him, can I give you a hug? He said, yeah. And we embraced. And I gave him a hug, and we cried. We cried together, as if there was a symbol of light and darkness, and the light engulfing the darkness of what had happened many years ago. And then I hugged his girlfriend. And she said, Jeremy, you're a good man. You're a good man. And I was like, thank you. Thank you. And after that, we departed. He went down the street that way, and I went my way. And it was funny because my wife was with me, and she was supposed to be observing what was going on. And in the meanwhile, she was in the van because like I was supposed to go get her. But the whole point was like, this just happened in the moment. So I was so excited. I went and got her, and sorry, just noise again. A lot of noise here today. Like, didn't they know I was talking today? Like, come on. Like, I'm going to make sure they know next time. But anyway, so yeah, I was so excited. I went and told my wife, oh, it happened. And she got out of the van, and she was just like, where is he? And I pointed I pointed that way, and I could just see he was hunched over. And it was like all the shame, all the pain that he'd been holding from this experience had been lifted. And yes, I know forgiveness is not about just, it's not about the other person, it's about you. But there's something that happens, something magical that happens in that experience when we can forgive someone. And what I realized from that experience was I need to forgive myself. Not for what had happened to me, but for other things that had happened as a result of what had happened to me. All the addictions, all the anger that I had, all the dark things that were part of my life that I had bottled up through years of trauma and unhealed trauma, I should say. Finally got to a place where I could do that. And that was through the integration experience that I had over the last 20 months. And that's what I realized that experience was like, is being able to build up enough self-compassion where I could learn new things about myself, hold different perspectives, see different realities. That I could have patience. 20 months is a long time. 20 months is a long time to work through an experience. But it doesn't compare in the amount of time that from the time I was abused to the time that I got to finally say that I forgave him for what he did to me. And this experience has left me not only the experience of forgiving the person who raped me, but also forgiving myself for not being the person who I thought I could be and who I want to be. And that's a person that I'm becoming very proud of today. To be able to stand up here in front of people such as yourself and share this message of integration, sharing a message of perseverance, being able to move beyond our own limitations, being able to move beyond the beliefs that we hold about ourselves and let go. Let go. And by letting go, we gain more. By letting go, we can gain so much more. We can gain a better understanding about ourselves and our true nature of what is really at our core. And that is something for me that I know that I am starting to understand. The more I take away the beliefs, the old thoughts I had about myself, I never thought I'd be able to stand in front of a group like this and share this story and see how it can have an impact on people. And for me, I'm very, very privileged today to be in front of you all. And I just want to thank you for just allowing me to share that experience with you all. And that's it. That's all I have. I think that was pretty good.
Did you want to share anything about the trip or that?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, the trip in it of itself was one of the most terrifying trips that I think anyone could go through. The destabilization of mind, the existential crisis that it brought on was something that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. for me, it was terrifying. And it left me struggling for many months with anxiety and depression and trying to understand consciousness, which is, again, it's all good. You know, we can try to understand those kind of things in our life. There's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to anxiety, mix that in with a little bit of anxiety, then it becomes a experience that is really hard to work through, because mystery of that kind of subject is really hard to grasp, especially when you're in a state of anxiety like I was. And the trip of it in and of itself, on that day, I went out. I remember I shared in the group I was going to go do this. Like, I was really proud of that moment, that time of like, yeah, I'm going to go have this experience. 5 grams of penis envy. You know, this is going to be an enlightening experience. And you're damn right, it was very enlightening. And it caused me so much anxiety on that day that I actually fainted. And I actually ended up going to the hospital because I had to get taken to the ER because I was walking around on 5 grams of mushrooms outside. And it was not till afterwards that I had that experience of coming out of it and stabilizing a little bit, where I started to experience like the panic, the ongoing panic. And I remember the panic, the first panic attack I had, I was home, just about to go to bed, going back to work, and I got really cold. And I know a little bit about psychology and fight or flight, and I could sense that I was going into a state of freeze, and my heart and like my body was just cold, and I was just shivering, and I was like, what is going on here? And I was just like holding on for dear life. And it took me about 45 minutes just to get down from that experience. And from then on, I started to experience more of the panic, and more of the intrusive thoughts, and more of just the downfalls of that specific experience. And then just to take that and work through that, and having a group of people around in my life that could support me, whether it be in this group or in other parts of my life, was one of the key things that helped me work through it. And getting in touch with a therapist, and then basically having a path to work with. For some, that's a religious path, a spiritual path. Some find other paths. For me, I found a path that includes psychology and spirituality, which is internal family systems, which has really helped me integrate the psychological aspect of our minds and also the spiritual aspect. And then combining those two aspects has been a real blessing in my life. And so for me, it was really helpful, to work through it was just really helpful to have some sort of path, some sort of way to integrate my experience. So is there anything more we can?
Couple more questions.
Sure. Yeah.
You can just for context explain. You say 5 grams, it doesn't seem like a lot.
Yeah. So 5 grams, for people who haven't done psychedelics before, 5 grams is like the threshold, I guess, of having a very enlightening experience. It's the bottom of the, I shouldn't say the bottom, but like, it's what other people in the psychedelic world, talk about the heroic dose. And so I took it a step more, and I had 5 grams of penis envy, and penis envy is more than it's probably comparable to about 10 grams or so. So I had about 10 grams of mushrooms, and I was walking around North Vancouver, able, luckily, like I was pretty coordinated on 10 grams of mushrooms, but it was definitely something that if I have to say, if you're going to have that type of experience, it's good to not go out and, and walk around. You can hold space if you're going to take it at home by yourself, or you're going to take it at home, you can have someone there with you, but do it responsibly and have this experience with someone that will guide you, someone who's experienced with the medicine, whatever medicine it may be. It may be mushrooms, or maybe LSD. Regardless, find someone who understands the medicine before you ingest it and go forward. So that's,
Oh yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I guess. Then in the afterwards, obviously you talked about kind of your getting back to basics or routines.
yeah.
I think a big important part with that was getting with qualified therapist.
Yeah.
That's something you'd recommend for people that have like a serious destabilizing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
I know, like integration circles, all these things out there, but like
Yeah, those help. For
extreme measure, it sounded like going to professional help was really important for you.
yeah, it was. I had a therapist before, and my therapist was not into psychedelics, but he had been a therapist of mine for about 3 or 4 years. And so I felt comfortable talking to him about this experience. But he had through no fault of his own, he had no understanding of what psychedelics can do to a person's mind. And so it was very important for me. I found the best of both worlds. I found someone who has done psychedelics before. I found a therapist who had done psychedelics, and I found a therapist who was involved in the path I wanted to choose, which was internal family system. So I got myself a double whammy there. And so really finding someone that is qualified to hold space for you, because not only was the experience itself traumatic, but the stuff that was coming up afterwards was the trauma that I had a whole bunch of childhood trauma that I had to deal with and to work through. So once that started coming up, it was very important for me to have someone qualified. And yes, don't get me wrong, integration circles are good. I go to integration circles, and I have been off and on for like the last 20 months, but it's not therapy. It's a place just to hold space, just to, talk through certain things, but it's not a place where you're going to be dealing with the hard stuff, the really, really challenging things, places that require a lot of skill. And you can only get that with a person that has that kind of training. So, yeah.
So yeah, we can open up to any questions for anyone else in the group. I'm happy with just Jeremy.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, no worries. Yes. So I think what you're asking is how did I come to the conclusion to use the medicine I was using? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, that's a good question. So I had researched many different avenues of using different types of medicine. I'd known about MDMA. For me, there was something that stood out about psilocybin. I had watched a whole bunch of videos about its use. I had used it 2 other times before this experience, And so I felt comfortable. I'm like, oh man, if I'm gonna feel this much love. So I did like another 2 trips prior. And my first trip I did was 2 grams of mushrooms. And it wasn't penis envy. It was like a hybrid between penis envy and another strain. And I actually felt, oh, it was actually that experience, that first experience, I felt so much love and joy. And yeah, like some trauma came up and I was able to deal with it, but it's such a small scale, and it did help. And I want to elaborate on that is that if you are going to start to dabble in these medicines, start low, start at like, 100 milligrams if you're doing mushrooms, you know, start small, get a feel for it, and then go a little higher, and then a little higher, then a little bit more. You work your way up. This isn't about your ego. This is about, your mind is so precious. It was looking back, I don't know how I made it to work some days. I don't know how I was able to get up in the morning. I spent a lot of days where I wasn't doing anything outside of work. So, but to answer your question about research is, for me, it was just something I was comfortable with mushrooms, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna just, I went from 2 to 3, then to 5, but it was really 10. So, I have not, no. And I know of a lot of people that have, and they have a really good experience with it. It's short lasting, so it's not going to be such an involved experience. I think, and other people can speak to this a little bit more in the breakout groups, but my understanding of DMT is it's more shorter sessions over a period of the same day. So you'll take one, and you'll have one session, and then have the experience, and then go on and do probably a couple more. Does that sound right? Yeah. Paul, I'm looking at Paul. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's the opportunity to do it multiple times.
We'll leave that for another day.
Yeah.
Details of that. For Jeremy to speak outside of his
Right.
experience. But maybe I'll follow up on that one. Like, have you done anything since? I know the answer, but you're good to share.
Yeah. So I haven't really tried anything since in large volume. So I have microdose. I do microdose. Actually, I microdose today, and I'm fine. I'm fine to take it. It's totally. I started microdosing LSD about a few months ago, and I find it to be a very pleasurable experience. It brings a sense of calm, creativity to me. So it's like, yeah, it's just the right thing for me at this moment. But I do plan on having more experiences going forward, using substances like MDMA, maybe 5-MeO DMT, but that is something that I'm going to work my way up to, as I'm enjoying having this kind of stability in my life right now. So, yeah. So anything? Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, sorry, what was your name? Jason. So Jason's asking about the existential crisis I experienced. So yeah, I can definitely expand on that. We all have questions about reality. At least I do. I don't know about any of you, but if you're in this group, I'm going to assume that you have some questions about reality, right? Consciousness and what that means, and the mystery of that. And so that's where my existential crisis got me, is like trying to understand consciousness, trying to understand at a deeper level what this all really means. For me, I grew up as a materialist. Meaning that table, solid, everything is very like formed. There's a subject and an object. But when you get into these, having these experiences, you realize that the world that you actually see out there is not as stable as you would like to think it is. And so for me, I had a lot of questions afterwards, and I did a lot of research and a lot of things that, and there's so many different perspectives on what actually all this is. And so I would like to say I have more answers, but I don't have all the answers. And that's something that I can appreciate given where I'm at right now. But yeah, mostly the existential crisis was brought on by the anxiety that I was experiencing at that time. So it wasn't so much that it was more, the anxiety was pushing the question. So, and the fear, because like all that fear was brought up in my trip. I have to say, I'm going to expand on this point a little bit. During my trip, I lost all sense of knowing, knowing people. I couldn't identify, what people were. I could obviously, my experience was like, it felt solid, but my whole, parts of my brain were shut down, and I wasn't able to it wasn't until I was on the way to the hospital where it finally clicked in. Oh, this is who I am, and this is what I was doing today. But so parts of my brain kind of got shut down, and I wasn't able to identify what was going on outside of me. But the existential crisis actually brought on, it actually turned out to be a good thing for me. It brought on, once I got to a more solid place in my life, I've been able to take those questions and really get a solid base of spirituality in my life. And what it feels like to be a human being, right? Because we're here, we are here. So yeah. Anyone else have any questions? Yeah, go ahead, Paul. Yeah. Right. So the question is about what are the top maybe 2 or 3 things that I did to help stabilize my experience. So what comes up for me is finding a path. What I mean by that is finding something that can explain your experience. So for me, having the balance of internal family systems where it has the psychological explanation, as well as the spiritual, that helped me integrate on a more whole basis. But that's a very subjective thing for a lot of people, that path. So, if your path is a materialist path, and it's going to be explained in that way, right? But when you have that kind of experience, you realize that there's more to this world than just materials, right? So I had to find something that explained that part of it too. So yeah, and then the other part was just having people in my life to talk to, because you pay for a therapist once a week, let's say. That's a lot of money. I was shelling out, $400 or $500 a month at the beginning, and that's on the cheap end. My therapist is cheap, and he's like that for a reason, because he's here to help people. But you get into it, and you can really get it. Some people can't afford that. So having a group of people surround you that you can really talk through things you can talk through things with is very important. For me, having people in this group was very helpful because they understand my experience. You know, people that are experienced in using this medicine, they can say, hey, yeah, you know, I've had, you know, similar experiences, or it's going to be okay. You know, just someone there to help reassure you. Yeah. Is there anyone else that would like to ask any questions? You can either ask about the trip. I don't mind asking about, you can ask about personal things as well. Jonathan? How do I find an IFS therapist? Well, that is hard. Actually, I started emailing therapists online that I just found through the IFS website, which you can just Google. And I started just, you know, emailing them, and they were saying, yeah, I have a waiting list. And I'm like, I can't wait. And so actually I found my therapist through his therapist. He told me that actually the person I got a hold of was his therapist. So she actually referred me to him, and that's how I found out who he was. And I've been working with him for over a year now, since February of 2021. I'm starting to lose my date. It's been a long time. So yeah, finding someone that's IFS trained is really hard. It's really challenging. Yeah. Follow up. Yeah. Jonathan's question is or more of just a statement of just saying, yeah, I'm training to be a IFS coach. Again, to life coaching, and that's part of it. Is that I'm such a believer about this path that I'm formally getting trained by a teacher who does it online, and it's going to be about 5 months, and so it's going to be a great process of getting trained and helping others in this space as well. Thanks. Thanks for that question or comment. Anyone else? Before we have our breakout?
Jeremy, thank you so much for coming up here.
Yeah, no worries, Kenny.
Giving some good advice. I appreciate the advice of things to do, things not to do. We got to be careful with these medicines.
Yes.
So I really appreciate you sharing the story, man. Thanks so much.
No worries.
For sharing it. Again, thanks.
Okay.